crafty friends. Today we will be creating a card using another one of my favorite new Brutus Monroe stencils, Viktoriia. In addition, I am using butterfly sentiments, safari conversation clippings, and the fairy flight path stencil. I began with adding the first stencil layer to a piece of Not Your Mama's cardstock. The stencil is designed for you to use the square in the top right hand corner to line up the stencils. My preference is to trace the square with the pencil. Easy peasy. I'm using a yellow Catherine Pooler ink with my blending brush to create the center of the flowers. I'm adding the second layering stencil and a mask in the center of the flowers. If I had to do it all over again, I would have put the mask on the cardstock opposed to over the ink, as it kept lifting up, caused me a little bit of grief as I was doing my ink blending. So you see me trying to correct that a couple times. I'm using 2 shades of pink for the flowers. I'm blending with a light hand to cover the top and the bottom flowers. Next, I'm adding the Fairy Flight Path stencil over the top of the flower stencil. I'm blending a darker shade of pink, and this is going to allow the design of the stencil to transfer on top of the flowers. You'll see what I'm talking about as soon as I provide you with the reveal. But I'm essentially stenciling on top of a stencil design that already exists, which is my flowers. And I did this in the last video I created using some black random dots on the flowers, and it came out so nice. And here I'm just using a totally different type of design on top of the flowers. So what do you think? Super cool, right? I just love the look. So now I'm adding the last stencil, which is the stems of the flower. I'm using a Catherine Pooler green to make the stems come to life. I did have to hold the stencil with my opposite hand as it kept lifting in the parts that are a little bit more intricate. So if you have this issue, you might want to use some pixie spray to hold it down. Alright, so now I want to cut down my card base, and I'm going to be using a rectangle die. So I'm taking a look at where do I actually want to place this die. How much of the design do I want to keep? You know, when you're looking at this, you're like, okay, I have my flowers, I have my stem. How much is going to stay inside this rectangle? So I cut my panel down as I was doing that, and I pulled it out of my vagabond. I noticed that the die did not cut all the way through at the bottom of the cardstock. So you can just see me snipping that with my scissors to make sure that I have everything lined up as intended to make my card base. So I cut a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 pink cardstock to adhere to the card base. So in this case, I did use some dry adhesive. I know some people like to use wet adhesive just because it gives you the wiggle round to move around when you're placing your items onto your card base, but in this case I did use some dry adhesive. I like 3D foam tape. I try to be mindful of how bulky I'm making my envelopes, but I did put this panel on with some 3D foam tape to give it some dimension. Super cute, aligning well with the colors of my flower. So I decided to add a butterfly, and I was trying to decide where do I want to place my butterfly. So not only was I looking at that, I also wanted to color my butterfly. So I'm doing that pretty quickly using some Spectrum Noir tri-blend markers. The great thing about these markers is you get 3 markers in one. So you get your light, your medium, and your dark marker all in one, making it very easy to blend out your colors. So as you can see, I am stuck in the pink theme pattern, and I'm going from light to dark on my butterfly. Pretty simple, just doing some flicks, nothing special as I'm coloring it, just light to dark. So next up, I decided to add some shine to my flower, and I'm using some fallen snow glitter glaze. And I'm just going to add this directly to the flowers. I did start with using a palette knife. However, I quickly saw that that was taking me a little bit more time than I liked, so I just decided to use my finger to add this medium to the flowers. It did make a little mess, so just make sure you're prepared, and you can clean your finger off. And then I did notice I had a little bit of mess with going outside the lines because I'm using my finger instead of the palette knife. So I just used the palette knife to go ahead and clean up the areas that I had a little bit of overlap. But you can see I just zoomed in. Super cute. Just gives it a little pizzazz, exactly what you need. So I'm using my Safari clippings, and it is the sentiments. They're pre-printed, pretty cool. Allowed me just to go ahead, put a little bit of 3D foam tape behind it and stick that right where I wanted it on my card base. And now I'm looking at my butterfly. Where do I want to position it? I'm trying to be a little bit strategic about that. Added some 3D foam tape behind that butterfly and popped that right up against that sentiment. And of course, I had to add some bling. So I have a little bit of bling, and I'm adding some crystals in the center of the butterfly and a couple just sprinkled throughout the card in threes, right? Isn't that what we do? Add them in threes with a little bit of Barely Art glue. And this is pretty much it, guys. I'm done with my card. I think it came out super cute, super easy. I really don't think it took me more than 10 minutes to do this. So thank you for stopping by. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys soon.